Welcome to the Backyard Bouquet podcast, where stories bloom from local flower fields and home gardens. I'm your host, Jennifer Galizia of The Flowering Farmhouse. I'm a backyard gardener turned flower farmer located in Hood River, Oregon. Join us for heartfelt journeys shared by flower farmers and backyard gardeners. Each episode is like a vibrant garden, cultivating wisdom and joy through flowers. From growing your own backyard garden to supporting your local flower farmer, the Backyard Bouquet is your fertile ground for heartwarming tales and expert cut flower growing advice. All right, flower friends, grab your gardening gloves, garden snips, or your favorite vase because it's time to let your backyard bloom. Welcome back to the Backyard Bouquet podcast. Today's episode is extra special. I'm joined today by Ben and Liz from Schreiner's Gardens, America's largest iris farm and a true cornerstone of the horticulture world. Schreiner's Gardens has been family-owned and operated since 1925. And in that time, they've not only become renowned for their breathtaking blooms and award-winning hybrids, but also for their deep-rooted values of family, quality, and community. Now in their fourth generation of stewardship, Schreiner's Gardens cultivates over 150 acres of irises in Oregon's stunning Willamette Valley, including a 10-acre display garden that draws thousands of visitors each spring during their once-a-year bloom season. So whether you're already an iris enthusiast or just beginning to discover their magic, this conversation is going to transport you into a century-long legacy of color, care, and creativity. We're going to talk about what goes into breeding world-class irises, how the business has evolved across generations, and what's in store as they celebrate their 100th anniversary this year. So let's step into the garden and welcome both Ben and Liz. Hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jennifer.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for joining us. I know it's a busy time of year for both of you. And I'm so excited that you are both joining us today. Schreiner's Gardens has been a place that I have visited throughout my life, and it is gorgeous. And I can't wait to share your story with our listeners today. You have such a rich and inspiring history. And as someone who loves learning the stories behind the flowers that we all grow, I'd love to start with the beginning. Can you take us back to 1925? How did Schreiner's Gardens first come to be?
Well, that was our Ben's great grandfather, my grandfather, who I've never met. He was raising poultry, chickens, and he was raising iris just a little bit on the side. And he kind of got bitten by the bug, started hybridizing them, and published his first list in 1925. And he had so many varieties. That's one of the reasons why he published his list. He thought to start selling them. So,
wow.
And it was back in St. Paul, Minnesota.
So the business did not start in Oregon?
No. It started 1925 in St. Paul, Minnesota. And they, that was one of the reasons he grew the iris back there. And back there, the weather is a lot different than here. It was then a lot of freeze thaw issues. So that is one of the reasons why he kind of talked to his son, his oldest son, Robert, and said, this would be a great business to get into, but because of the weather issues here, it'd be good to possibly find another location. So they tested like 3 different valleys, one in Tennessee, one in Texas, actually.
Oh, wow.
And in the Willamette Valley, they sent iris here, and the Willamette Valley was the one that the best growing conditions, the longest, season. And so they moved here in 46, I think, right, Ben? 46, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's amazing. So this family operation started in the Midwest, is that?
Mm-hmm. St. Paul.
And St. Paul. And then irises were sent to 3 locations to see where they would grow best, and the Willamette Valley was obviously the preferred location that
Mhm.
they liked to be growing in. So did the entire family move across the country just for the irises?
Yeah, they did at the time. So our grandfather, he passed away in 1931, so he never moved to Oregon, and
Okay.
his son, Robert, was actually going to school. He was going to the university in St. Paul, and he had to drop out of school. He had to drop out of college, and because he had to help his mom and his brother and his sister, because it was Connie and my dad Gus. And so then in 1946, yes, they all moved. They got on a train and moved. We actually have Adirondack benches. They actually moved those. And my dad was actually in the Army. World War II was happening, so he was in the Army. He came a little bit later, but yeah, they moved. The office that we're sitting in right now was their home. So they had 3 families living in it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Did you grow up in that as your home?
quite a bit. I'm sorry, what?
Did you grow up in what's now the office as your home?
No, no. Ben's dad was one of the first that grew up in the new home. They built a new home, probably 500 feet, maybe, or 1,000 feet away from here. So
Okay.
no, there's 8 siblings on my dad's side. So yeah, no, the first 4 siblings. There was probably 7 kids though in this home, in the office home. So,
Wow, that's amazing. And so are all 7 siblings involved in the farm?
no, 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 no. Out of, out of a lot of the grandchildren, only, well, myself, my brother Ray, and my brother Steve, and then Steve and Ray retired, and my cousin Dave and my cousin-in-law Tom, they were all in the business, and my cousin Ellen, and they've all since retired, and so now it's been, 4th generation and myself, 3rd generation. So it helps to have a lot of kids. Sometimes.
That's amazing. So how many family members are currently involved in the business? Do you happen to know?
Just Ben and myself.
Just the 2 of you now. Okay. What do you think has allowed Shriners to not just endure, but thrive for 4 generations? I mean, that's amazing.
Ben, I will let you. What do you think?
Well, I mean, like luck is a part of it. But
Mhm.
also we've focused on like perfecting, one thing basically. We've focused. I mean, we do have other things we do, but we focus real exclusively on bearded iris, and that becomes a focus. And that's kind of the main thing that we do. And I think it's like once you get really good at one thing, it allows you kind of stand out. And I think that's been one of the keys to our success.
I love that because I think as flower farmers, we often try to do a lot all the time, but you found success because you have focused on one thing and you've allowed yourselves to get really good at that one crop.
Yeah, like because we've been growing iris and mainly just iris for 100 years, you get a lot of expertise built up over that time that's passed down, and so that's really key for us.
Mhm.
I love that. That's amazing that 4 generations you're in and you've managed to just stick to one crop. I've had the opportunity to visit your gardens before. You have gardens that are open to the public. I know in there you grow more than just bearded iris. Is that more for the show, or are you also selling and cultivating other varieties now? Or I mean, not varieties, but plant species.
We grow a little. We grow daylilies. They're in the garden, but they're not going to be blooming when the irises are blooming. We sell and grow a little allium, but mainly everything in the garden is for the irises, to kind of better showcase the irises rather than just having irises alone. It's kind of the whole point is to kind of show people what they will look like in a garden setting and give people ideas about how to use irises in the garden. And that was mainly my dad's doing. He's a huge gardener. He loves plants, loves gardening. And so he just kind of took what was just kind of like an iris display and just kept on adding more perennials and trees and shrubs year after year. And I think what was that probably started like the early mid 90s?
Yeah. Yeah. About right after the last convention, he really took this main garden right outside our window here. And he just, bought trees and plants and things to complement and companion plants for the garden. So he's definitely a garden addict.
I have had the pleasure of seeing this garden that we're speaking about, but for those that are listening that haven't seen it, can you help paint a picture? What would someone find when they come to visit Shriners?
Well, they'd see you walk through the display and you see iris with lupin, and there's peonies, roses, poppies, allium, and then there's all kinds of shrubs too. We have that are blooming on the sidelines, and trees. We have dogwood trees blooming, lilacs. It's not just an iris garden. It is a beautiful display garden that that really Ben's dad put together to show people you can create a garden like this in your home. And he gave them the palette. He showed them how to do it. So the way he planted things. So it's very inspirational that way, because people can see that and go, well, I can do this. I think I'll try and do a little more a mix, because in the old days, it seemed like people used to plant everything in rows. You'd have when you'd go see a garden, it was rows of iris or rows of, rows of roses, rows of dahlias, but he really incorporated this garden setting.
It's a beautiful setting. I want to make sure people can see this picture in their minds, that you have these grass pathways between many of the rows, and you have walking trails that guide people through the property, and you have benches that people can sit. And are they still allowed to bring in like a lunch or a little picnic and eat and just enjoy the gardens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then because we've been here so long, the trees are, that we've got very large trees on the property, which also grace it so well.
And that's 10 acres that people can walk through and see these gardens, these inspiration gardens. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And then Ben added, go ahead, Ben, and tell him you've added the field now.
Yeah, but we have the garden. There's two gardens. There's the main garden that's right off the office. And then there's a path that connects it to the smaller display garden, which was the original display garden. And then we also have fields planted, so people that want to see iris in the field setting, they can go out and walk through the fields. We added a couple years ago a small pollinator meadow, so people can go out and enjoy that. That's planted this year with clover. So yeah, it's kind of nice because in addition, we have a cut flower display. So everything that's blooming in the field that particular day is cut and put on display. So it allows people to see iris in different settings. You can see the same iris in a field with a bunch of other iris. You can see it in the garden with companion plants, and then you can see it cut alone in a vase inside. So it's really a good way to see the irises.
I love that. So you grow on 150 acres, is that correct?
Of bearded irises, yeah. Of
bearded irises. Are you growing those? Are those ones that you are breeding, or you are growing so that you can sell are they called the rhizomes? The rhizomes. You sell those online and on site, is that correct?
Correct. We on site in May, we have irises in pots that people can take home. So we don't have bare root, we just the potted ones. But online we sell, and people can also place orders here. But all those orders are going to be bare root. They're dug in July through September and shipped out July through September as well. Yeah.
Okay. And are those ones that you as a family have bred, or that are just named varieties? How does that work?
It's a mix. I mean, like, we hybridize new varieties ourselves, and we do generally around 16 tolerated introductions each year.
Wow.
But we also bring in other hybridizers' irises, and then we'll build up stock, use them for hybridizing ourselves, and then we'll sell them as well. So it's a mix. I mean, probably the majority of them are going to be our irises, but it's not 100%.
Okay, so you have a mixture of them. I'm curious, what inspired Liz, your grandfather, and Ben, your great-grandfather, to first start growing iris? Was there something that drew him to bearded iris of all flowers?
I'm not real sure on that. I mean, I think he was, like I said, he was cross-pollinating, or if that's the correct term, chickens, poultry breeding was something he was doing. And he had some iris in his garden, and he actually met a man who on the train, um, John Wister, who they used to ride the train a lot back in those days. Not everyone had cars. And he talked to him about iris, and I think they traded some, and then he started growing different varieties, and he started cross-pollinating them. I'm not sure why it was iris, but he got bit by the bug. I mean, yeah, so. And they are so, they're such a different, unique flower compared to so many things. So
They really are. They're very different than most cut flowers, and I think a lot of people are still getting used to the idea of growing bearded iris from more than just a landscape plant and adding them to cut flower arrangements. Can you tell us, in your opinion, both of you, I'd love to hear from you, what makes irises so special to grow and breed?
I mean, I think irises are so special because of all the different color combinations. I mean, like, you have basically all the colors. There's not a true red, but there's very close. Maybe there's not a true blue, but there's very close. I mean, there's some that are pretty much black if on a cloudy day. So like the variations in color that you can get with irises, I think, is one of the things that makes them special. The other thing too is, and maybe some people view this as maybe like a knock against irises, but I think it's one of the things that makes them special is that they're not in bloom for a long period of time. You know, it's like they're going to be in bloom for a few weeks in May. And so it kind of makes that time more special. And so I think that's, to me, those are the two things that stand out that make irises so great.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you, Liz?
And also, I think that, well, if you look at the iris flower, um, it has a lot of, there's that luminous quality to it. Some of them actually, if you look at some of the petals, some of the flowers, they actually seem to sparkle. They are, there's, and like Ben said, there's just so many different colors. And that's one thing the hybridizers are doing now. The color range is through the roof. I mean, it used to be it used to be yellow, purple, blue, white, now there's just so many variations. The orange has become one of my favorite colors in the iris world. And, we'd love to get a true pink and a real true, red, like Ben said. That's, everyone's trying to strive for that, like a geranium red. But I think it is such a special time because it's a unique, a short time, and just kind of take a pause and really go out and enjoy your garden. Go out in the morning, go out in the evening and take a look around. It's so fun to see what's blooming.
I love that what you both said about the short season, it really makes them fleeting, and you really have to stop and appreciate them in the moment because they don't last long. And they also don't last very long in storage, I've found. I can't store them for a super long time in the cooler. Is that true, or am I storing mine wrong?
Um,
Do you,
yeah, they're not the longest cut
Yeah.
flower. I mean, we do sell a lot of cut flowers to wholesale customers that use them in storage. When we store them in cooler, we try to store them at like 33, 34 degrees. And then generally once they start to open, get usually like about a week of vase life on them.
Okay. And how long can you store them in the cooler?
Um, yeah, I would say probably about the same period of time. I mean, I think a week would probably be pushing it. It also depends on how close the buds are when you cut them. Like if you're cutting them as the first tiny glimpse of color is emerging, you're going to get a little bit longer. If you're cutting them when the bud is almost full color, then it's going to be a little less.
Okay. So it's not like a peony or a tulip where you can harvest it and dry store it for a while and then let it bloom. It's really fleeting.
Mhm.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So even your shipping window, because you ship your bearded iris across the country, you have a very short shipping window then as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. The cut season is very short. It's also like highly weather dependent. I mean, it was I think it was 2 years ago. We had a very cool and wet spring, and we were cutting tall bearded iris for cut orders for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then some years that's gone down as short as 3 weeks. So like if you get really hot when things are blooming and things go quickly, then the season just kind of can be cut in half.
And is your garden center, the inspiration area, is that only open while the bearded iris are in bloom?
Yeah. Yeah, just when the irises are blooming. So I think we open this week a week early because it's been a little bit warmer, but generally it's Mother's Day weekend to Memorial Day weekend.
Okay. So you have a very short season that the public gets to see it, but I imagine that your actual production and operations go year round at the farm. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's no stopping.
Yeah. Yeah. And the irises too, like we have dwarf irises. And so those, will start blooming about a month before the tall ones.
Oh, okay.
And so those will bloom well before any visitors are in our garden. But yeah, then after bloom, it's on to, digging and shipping orders. And then we got to go from that into planning. And every field every year is dug, divided, and replanted. So 150 acres has to come in, be processed, either shipped out or sent out to the fields to replant. And so that's a pretty big process.
Wow. Every single one of them gets dug up every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. How many rhizomes does each one produce per year?
Um, that'll kind of vary, but generally we want to see it increase just by 3. So plant 1 rhizome, at least get 3 new ones.
And when you divide it, can you reuse like in dahlias, we call the original one, the mother tuber. Can you use like the mother rhizome again for another year of planting?
We do to build up our stock, but those ones usually you'll see, each rhizome blooms once and only once, but the mother one, you'll see like a bloom stalk on it from the previous year. And and you cut off the ones that have foliage, if there's no foliage left, usually you'll see a little kind of speck on the corners of new increases. So you can plant those, but they won't bloom the following year. Those ones will take at least 2 years to bloom.
Okay. So it's quite a process to replicate one to have enough to ship out into the world.
Yeah. I mean, like from the time we cross, or hybridize, to the time we have enough stock to sell, it's generally 10 years or more.
Oh my goodness. That's why they're so much more expensive than dahlias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have always loved bearded iris because they remind me of my grandmother. And so, well, I don't have a ton. And unfortunately, I lost a lot when we moved. So I've got to rebuild my stock. So maybe next year, once we get our new farm set up, I'll come see you guys so I can
Yeah.
get more planted again in my garden because I do love them. And I love the blushes and the kind of the sherbet or the like really soft peachy colored ones. But um, some of them I couldn't believe how expensive they are, but that makes sense. I mean, people complain in the dahlia world about paying $35 for a tuber, but I've seen bearded iris in the 60s and 70s range for one, but that makes sense. If it's a 10-year process, that's a long time to bring a
And
flower to market.
we don't want to sell them all out in the first year. I mean, we we don't have that many. That's exactly why. There might
Okay.
be a row or something or just a small bed.
Well, let's talk about the breeding a little bit. Do you both participate in the breeding, the hybridizing?
No, that's Ben's role. Ben learned it from his dad, and his dad learned it from my dad. But I'll let that's Ben, and he's creating some beauties.
So, Ben, you're a fourth generation hybridizer also, not just a
Yeah.
grower.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
What inspired you to continue that legacy?
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, like I grew up working on the farm. Started like when I was 12, and so I'd always worked here, and then like went to school, and I kept on working here in the summers, and then um, I would on the hybridizing stuff. I didn't do a lot, but I was around my dad in Maine, and you'd show me stuff, and like so I was familiar with it. And then when I was like late 20s or so, that's when I officially came into the business, and it was I have I think like 15 cousins on my dad's side, and I'm on the younger side of my cousins, and
Very cool.
no one else wanted to come in the business, and it was kind of a point where it was either me or maybe there'd have to be like a ownership change or something, and I didn't want to see that happen. We have a a great history here, and we also have employees that have worked for us for 30 plus years, and a lot of
Wow.
them live on the property. Um, and so it's not just, our families, other families involved too. So, it's got to a point where I wanted to just keep things going.
That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the breeding process? How does it work? I'm so curious.
Yeah. It's actually really easy to breed. The limiting factors for people are going to be like patience, because it takes 2 years after the first cross to see your first bloom, and then time. And space, because it's going to take a lot of crosses generally to get something that's worthy of introducing. So like things are just the Talbert is just starting to bloom now. So this is the time that you hybridize, and so you take the pollen from one variety and you put it on another variety that you want to cross with. And if it takes, the seed pod will start to form, and you'll see that as soon as a couple weeks after the cross is made. And then in late July or so, that seed pod starts to brown and crack, and that's when we go out and harvest them. And then we store them and let the seeds dry all summer into fall. And then late November, we plant the seeds out. And then they start to grow the following spring. There'll be no bloom on them. We put them in a cold frame for that first year. And then, early summer, we'll go out and grow them out in a field. And then it'll be the next year. So 2 years after cross, you'll see the first bloom. So like part of the process right now is like we're making crosses, but we're also going out and looking at the seedling field to see the first blooms on crosses we made 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long waiting process.
Yeah. So yeah, then the other part too is obviously the record keeping. You want to make sure that you have good records, because when you see varieties that you like or traits that you like from a cross, you want to be able to make sure that you know where they're coming from.
Absolutely. So when you cross them, are you hand crossing them or are you letting the bees help you or a combination?
It's all hand crossing. Strangely enough, for the bearded irises, the beard, the kind of the bushy part on the falls, the petal falls, is so big, and the pollen's right behind the beard. It's so big that they don't really get naturally pollinated. I mean, like
Okay.
in all of our fields, like there's maybe a dozen or so naturally pollinated seed pods each year with the tall bearded. Um, on the dwarf irises, that's different. There's the bees can get in there and pollinate those on their own. But yeah, all our hybridization is based on selections we've decided to cross.
Amazing. So when it goes to seed, I'm just so fascinated because I love breeding dahlias. And with dahlias, I let the bees help me. So I don't hand cross because our season isn't long enough here. Usually I've run into trouble of like rain or different things messing them up when I try and hand cross. But anyways, if I harvest a seed pod of a dahlia, I might get anywhere from 5 to 40 seeds out of one seed pod that I can grow out the next year. How many seeds do you get from a cross on a bearded iris?
It's actually pretty similar.
Is it okay?
Yeah, I mean, like it'll that range is about right for irises as well.
Okay, interesting. So how many crosses are you doing each year to then grow out the following year?
Uh, a ton. I mean, like it again. That's highly dependent on the weather. If you have a wet May, you can't get out and cross as much.
Mhm.
But generally, I think we're hitting at least 1,000 crosses every year.
Wow. So you're growing thousands and thousands of seedlings.
Yeah, we have yeah. So like each seed from that pod is going to be a different variety. So yeah, if you count all those up, yeah, we have thousands of different seedlings going.
Oh my goodness. Do you have specific goals that you're breeding for?
Yeah, I mean, like we try to get a range of colors that we can, because we, like I said, we introduce 16 tall bearded ones each year. We try to, you know, generally get at least one in different in each color class. Um, so I mean, like, generally, what we're looking for is like more buds per stem. You want, like ideally like 12 or more buds per stem. That's going to provide a longer bloom time for people. It's going to be a better cut flower for people. And then, like things like rebloom, that's always a sought after trait. And then like, just any kind of new variations and patterns or colors are also going to be something that you're going to want to keep.
Can you control the breeding so that, like, if you want to get a blush bearded iris, you can cross certain ones to get a blush? Or it's like with dahlias, they're octoploids. So the gene pool is so huge when you cross them. How does that work with bearded iris?
Yeah, generally, I mean, like it's not. I mean, like if you cross two blushes, you're gonna have seedlings that are mostly blush. But I mean, like sometimes there's an outlier here or there. Um, like, um, but it's not. You never know exactly what you're gonna get because there could be some recessive genes in there that pop up. Um, but generally, you have a pretty good idea, and then it's just a matter of seeing what happens when it blooms.
Okay. And are there any colors that you cannot get with a bearded iris?
Um, yeah, I mean, like there's colors you can get really close, but like we said, technically, like there's no red.
Uh-huh.
There's no, um, well, blue. I guess it depends on who's looking, and I mean, there's some varieties that I think are blue, but maybe aren't technically blue. So probably blue. Like green. There's nothing close to green, and then black. Again, like there's really close, but technically not black. But that's the thing that's really unique about irises is like, yeah, there is no red, but there's stuff that's very, very close. And so like the range in colors in irises is incredible.
Some of the muted colors that have like those antique shades are so amazing, and how they can have, like on the bearded part, the different colors from the petals. I don't know if I'm using the right descriptive words, but just the color combinations that are possible are so intriguing to me.
It's funny about the muted colors because I would say like maybe it was like 6-7 years ago, those were not popular. And we had more stock of a lot of stuff, and we kind of culled some of those back because they weren't selling. And then all of a sudden that changed dramatically. And now the muted colors are the most popular colors.
Yeah.
Especially for like garden and maybe more garden enthusiasts or iris enthusiasts. And like the bright, bold colors that have, they're still popular, but they're not maybe as highly sought after as the muted ones. So it's just funny how the trends and preferences kind of change.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm really excited. We have a new farm, and there was all of this trash that we cleared out. And when we cleared it out, underneath it, all of these bearded iris are coming up. And I believe it was a garden from like the 1980s and 90s. And I'm so anxious and curious to see what these bearded iris are going to be. And I have a feeling they're probably going to be the brighter colors because of when they were. But hopefully I can maybe send you a few pictures and you can help me identify what varieties they might be, or maybe someone was breeding them back in the day. We've found all of these old world heirloom daffodils, but I'm so excited to have these bearded iris blooming. They just kind of feel like this little treasure that we found after doing some cleanup on the land.
Yeah, that's the other thing about bearded iris is that they're hard to kill. I mean, like once they establish, they like, I think it's pretty common too. Like, like people throw the iris in compost pile. We have, like a big compost pile, and like we were throwing the scraps in there all the time, and it blooms every May.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We always joke sometimes with like our dahlia tubers that we've got this dahlia graveyard. So you kind of have a bearded iris graveyard where they continue to bloom.
Definitely.
So I jumped into the breeding, but let's go back to the growing. Who can grow bearded iris?
Who can?
Yes.
Yeah.
And anybody. They're pretty easy to grow.
I was thinking so when you said that you can throw them in the compost and they'll grow, and you said they were hard to kill. So are there any growing zones that can't grow bearded iris?
Well,
South Florida, some of the tropical areas, yeah.
So they don't do well in tropical areas, but
they need a dormancy period, a cold dormancy period of 6 to 8 weeks. So,
okay.
Yeah, the southern Florida parts, way south Texas, sometimes they don't bloom for them. They'll grow lush green leaves, but other than that, they grow anywhere.
Awesome. So when you say they need the dormancy period, does it have to get below freezing, or it just needs to get cold enough for them to go dormant?
They need 6 to 8 weeks of cold period. I believe that's freezing. Yeah.
Okay. And what kind of conditions do they need to be planted in? So if someone's listening today and is intrigued about bearded iris, what kind of garden do they need to be able to plant bearded iris?
I'll let the grower handle that one.
I think the key things is, at least half a day of sun. The more sun you have, the better. And then well draining, like a raised bed, ideally. Irises don't want to be wet through the winter or spring. They want to dry out, and then sun. And then once you get them established, the next thing you just need to kind of be aware of is that, they will multiply fairly quickly, and eventually they'll spend all energy multiplying, and that you'll see kind of decrease in bloom. And usually you can see that as like, it spreads outward. You kind of get this circle where you have the foliage on the outside of the circle, and in the center you have the rhizomes with no foliage, because they've kind of bloomed themselves outward. Once you kind of see that, that's a sign that it's time to dig them up and divide them and replant them.
And it's pretty easy to dig them and divide them.
Yeah. I mean, like irises too. I mean, like there's some people view, bearded irises as bulbs, and so that they will try to bury them real deep, but they don't like to be buried deep. You can plant them pretty much around the top of the soil. Like the top of the rhizome can be just under the soil where it could be exposed. But because of that, you don't have to dig down deep to get them out. They're just right on top.
That's nice. When we lost our previous growing space, I created these raised beds in our garden where I'd had bearded iris, and I thought I dug most of them up. And I put 12-inch raised garden beds. And by the end of the summer, I had bearded iris growing through all of my raised beds. And I couldn't believe it because I've always planted them on the surface. So they are incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that in our fields too. Like you rotate the field, and so it's been disked or plowed and planted with something else, and you'll see iris, growing up through weed or grass, because it just takes a little chunk, and a lot of times, that happens in people's gardens. Yeah, when they dig them up and they didn't realize a little chunk fell off when they're shaking the dirt off, and the next year, 2 years later, they'll have a bloom there.
That's awesome. So they're easy to share with others.
For sure.
Are they susceptible to any diseases, or is there any certain care and maintenance that they need?
I mean, like you have, like leaf spot in the spring. It's a fungal disease that's present on the foliage. They'll look like little brown spores. That's, we get that some, especially in our garden, because there's not much circulation in the garden, and we have pretty wet springs. And you can spray for it just like a general fungicide if you want, or you can trim off the foliage that's affected. You want to trim off the top and leave as much foliage at the bottom as you can. But yeah, leaf spot. Like you can get like soft rot too. And again, that's just like a drainage issue. If you have like if you're somewhere with a wet summer, I think you have to worry more about rot than we do here, because we have pretty dry summers. So again, it'd just be making sure that you have a well-drained location for them in the garden.
Got it. Okay. So if they get those leaf spots, you don't have to pull those plants. That won't necessarily come back the following year.
No. It's like I said, you can trim off the foliage if you like. It's a little unsightly, but it's just based on the conditions. Like some years we have bad leaf spot because of it's a particularly wet spring. Other years we don't. And like I said, in our fields we really don't get leaf spot because the air circulating freely. It's really a problem in our garden because, like Liz was saying, it's surrounded by these large trees that have been here for 60, 70 years. And so it just doesn't get the air flowing through there. So it kind of depends on what your garden at home looks like. But if you're in a wet climate and you're in a densely packed garden, you probably will have issues with this one.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's helpful. It's neat that it's a flower. It seems like so many flowers have so many different pests, or not pests, but viruses and diseases that we have to watch out for. And it seems like bearded iris don't really have that many that you have to be concerned about.
Yeah, they're pretty easy in that regard for sure.
Let's talk about harvesting them as a cut flower. Do you have any tips for people that want to grow them as a cut flower and use them in arrangements?
What do you think, Liz?
Well, I think if you want to cut them, I would say, cut them in the morning. In I think a bud form is nice, or partial bud. And, they need a good, solid, good, heavy duty vase, or a vase with flower, with, rocks in the bottom, of course.
Mm.
But, I would say, I think a lot of people are afraid to cut them because they're in the garden. And sometimes I don't like to cut things out of the garden because I want the color in the garden. But if you wanted to grow extra and use them for cut bouquets, they last a good week and they're beautiful inside. And they have such a beautiful scent. They permeate your house, of course, with the beautiful fragrance. There's iris that smell like grapes. There's an iris that smells like root beer. So I think harvesting for cut flowers, I mean, if people want to do that, probably grow them, a little bit outside of a garden, more like we were saying, a row setting. But yeah, we ship them, as Ben said before, we ship them overnight, and we're doing that right now. We're cutting stems and shipping them overnight to people for their bouquets.
And the neat thing with bearded iris is that they have multiple flowers that bloom. So I've found that if I snap off the first flowers, it starts to fade. There's going to be another one and then another one. I've found that if I don't snap those off, because I have some people, I'm always nervous to use them like in a CSA bouquet or something, because people will say, oh, they start to smell terrible because they let the one go to mush and not know to snap it off. But is that what's recommended, is as one starts to die, you snap it off?
Yeah. As one starts to fade, you'd pick it off, and then the new one comes along. It's much like, if you have a bowl of oranges, or those little clementines in a bowl. If one gets moldy, you're going to throw that one out and refresh the others. So yeah, just clean them up, and they'll bloom they'll bloom like a week to 10 days if they keep doing that.
And when you say a week to 10 days, it's not a single flower that's going to bloom for 10 days. It's the whole stalk that's going to bloom.
Thing. Like if you got 7 to 12 stems, like you say, like we are hybridizing for more buds per stalk. So there's a lot more on there.
Thank you. That's helpful. Do you need to put any floral preservative or anything in the water with them? Or can you just put them in straight water?
You can. We never do here. Sometimes at home, what I've done is, maybe I've recut the stem, but I've never really needed to do that. And I've had great results. So.
Perfect. Since we're talking about them as cut flowers, do you have any favorite varieties? I'd love to know from both of you that you like to cut and bring into the house.
Well, go ahead, Ben.
My wife loves the variety We Madame. It's a light lavender. So, I every year we bring that one in just because she likes it. I'm strangely enough, I don't like cutting them either. Like I like seeing them in the garden. It's different for us because we have fields and we can cut from the fields, but I'm definitely someone who enjoys them in the garden more than the field, more than the vase. But yeah, We Madame, I guess, would be one that we make sure we get cut every year and brought in.
Does it have a scent?
Yeah, it has a floral scent. So yeah, it's nice. Most irises do have a scent. It's and like when you come here and visit, it's pretty strong, especially like when you're walking through the flower show where you have all these varieties cut. It's very distinctive, pleasant scent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. I love I love sometimes getting a whole bouquet like of just blue, or a whole bouquet of just, like you said, the pastel shades, the blush, the tawny colors, and you mix them all together, and it's just beautiful in a bouquet, and bring them inside, and then sometimes it's just fun to bring in a single stem and put it in a vase, and put it in your bathroom, put it in your your foyer, or just it's fun, and we're lucky because we can do that. I can put them in every room of the house if I want to.
Yes. That is my goal again, to have enough that I can do that. I think I have about 10 that I was able to save when we moved.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that I can expand those out and add some more varieties back into the garden. What about ones to grow in the garden? Do you have any favorites that you like to see bloom?
There's a variety called Senior Jinx. It's a dark purple / black with a yellow beard. I like that combination. And then also, we had a cat named Jinx that was black with yellow eyes. We named it after. So I always like seeing that one in the field and garden. Because it's the combination of, a name that's meaningful, and then and the bloom.
Is that one you bred yourself?
Yes, it was my dad introduced that one, but yeah, it was one of ours.
Okay. Awesome.
Some it's that's really hard to say. It's kind of like someone says, "What's your favorite? What one do you want to have in your garden?" Oh, it's you go out and like right now, if I went out there today, I would say, "Oh, I want that one in my garden." Like there's a one last year was on the cover. It was called Cruise Sips. It's sort of a pinky rose with some markings. It's gorgeous. It opens up really a deeper kind of a rose with some blush markings, and then it kind of fades. I love the ones that open really dark and then they kind of fade. There's such a that's sort of a I don't know if it's a new trend, but I love the way that it's almost like you have two flowers, and I think that's so beautiful.
Say that name again for me, will you please?
Cruise Sips. We had a contest last year, Cruise Sips, like cruise, like take a cruise, and then sips, like you're taking a sip of tea. But, we had a contest last year, we have a name contest every year, a naming contest, and someone submitted that, and although it wasn't really chosen for the one iris, we liked it so much we gave them a prize because it just sort of fit in with our tropical theme, so, yeah, it was a great name. We always
Awesome.
love the naming contest because people come up with great names.
So you do a naming contest. Do you ever have an option where people can pay to have a variety named after them or a loved one?
We've named them after people, we haven't had them pay per se. We have, like Ben can speak to the wholesale world. We've kind of done something of that. But for personal, we haven't really done that. No, too much. I mean, just some people have written us stories that have really been touching. We named an Irish Jimmy G a while back for a man who was very involved in the Shakespearean Festival down in Oregon, down in Southern Oregon in Ashland. And so, but they wrote us like 4 or 5 letters. We were very impressed and we really wanted to do that for them. So we don't always name iris after people. It just sort of depends.
I love that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. We've talked about a lot today. We have a 100-year anniversary celebration that's taking place at your farm right now. Can we touch a little bit on that? What does 100 years look like and mean to both of you?
What do you think? And it means a lot of work. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of wrap your head around, I guess. Because like Liz was saying, like neither of us met my great grandfather or her grandfather. So like we don't have like the direct connection, but um but yeah, it's I mean it's amazing um feat to have a business last 100 years, especially when it's a family business. Um, but it's also like it kind of reminds you of like your role, your place. Where there's like for me, there's 3 generations before me that laid the ground for everything that I can do now. Um, and hopefully there'll be generations after me that can pick up. And so you just kind of keep in mind that like seems like every generation has improved and left the business in a better spot. And so that's, I think, our goal is we want to keep that going, and so that whoever comes after us has a better farm and business than we had.
It just means too, I think 100 years, it means we as a company and as a farm, we care very much about our customers and our integrity, our helping our customers and our uh, just growing, like our tagline is growing beauty for continuing to grow beauty for people so that in their life, no matter how chaotic lives can be, you can grow iris and have a little piece of beauty, a little piece of heaven right there in your own garden. And I think that's something that the generations before us always wanted to do. And that's something that we are carrying on. And that's something that really drives us forward. We love providing beauty for other people and providing happiness too in this world that we live in.
I love that. Thank you. Ben, as the fourth generation of this family business, what is the legacy you hope to leave with the business?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what I said previously, but I guess, I want to improve the business, improve the farm, so that whoever takes over after me has a stronger business, has a better, more efficient farm, that that it's easier for them to take it down whatever path they choose to take it down. But I think, especially like I said, when it's a multi-generational business, it gives you perspective of like there's people before you, and so there's going to be people after you as well. So you're just trying to make things better in your time here, and that's kind of my focus.
Thank you. So let's talk about the celebration of 100 years. How are you celebrating this milestone?
Yeah, so May 2nd, it opens until the end of May 31st, I believe. So we have lots of things planned. They can go on to our website. We have some of the new things. We have a golden hour, which is 3 Thursdays in a row. You can stay till sunset. We have like a family day. We have an art fair at the end of the month.
The golden hours, that's new for this year. It's what we're opening. Usually the garden closes at 7 p.m., which is kind of a shame because some of the best light of the day is after that. For 3 Thursdays this May, we were going to open it up till just after sunset. We'll have live music those nights, food trucks, all that. So, all those days are, of course, weather dependent. If it's raining those particular nights, we'll move it to another night.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the main. Well, then we have the art fair in May and Memorial Day weekend as well. Lots of different things, all on the website to view.
Perfect. And can you share with us, what is your website? And I'll include the link in the show notes today.
www.schreinersgardens.com. So SCHREINERS, and then gardens is plural.com. And one thing I want to say too is our garden is so beautiful. We don't have a lot of, I want to say jumpy houses, or we don't have a lot of different things like that. I mean, we have certain events that are more garden related, but we also really love the serenity of the garden. So people can come and walk through with their kids, and the kids can run through the paths and visit and really see the garden in its beauty, and not, it's not always about, the events are fun and we love them. They're fun for us, but the garden is really the star of the show.
It's a beautiful garden. I definitely recommend anyone listening that's able to get to the Willamette Valley this May to go and visit your gardens. And you also have an online catalog where people can order bearded iris to put in their gardens. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what time of year is best to order those?
Now.
Now is a good time.
Yeah, we actually open our website right in January. So yeah, people have been ordering. So some things are sold out already. So now is a good time to order.
But they don't ship until starting in July. Is that correct?
Right.
So July through September. So the rhizomes get planted late summer, early fall to bloom the following year.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. We've talked about a lot today. Is there anything I haven't asked that either of you would like to share with our listeners today?
I would just say if they live close by and they haven't been here before, definitely make a visit, because it's something most people who come here have never been here before will say, wow. Even some people who live close, I never knew it was like this. That's, I'm so happy I got a chance to come by and see this beautiful garden. So it's a rare thing. We have people fly in from all over the world, but if you live close by, you should stop in. It's only 1 month. So
The time is fleeting.
yeah. Ben, how about you? What do you?
I echo what you said. I think it's great. Yeah. I mean, I would highly encourage people to visit. It's hard to kind of describe
Mm-hmm.
the garden. It's kind of something you have to experience in person, because it's also not just the sights, it's the smells of the flowers, and so it's definitely something that I would encourage people to visit if they can.
Perfect. Well, we will include links in today's show notes so people can learn more about Shriners and how to get to you and how to visit and the times. Are tickets required in advance, or can people just show up?
Tickets are required.
People can just show up, and tickets are required there's an entry fee, but you can purchase ahead of time online, or you can purchase at the gate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, it's been such a joy to chat with both of you. I've loved learning about your 4-generation flower business. I love that you said that part of the success is because you have chosen to focus on one flower and get really good at growing it. And that's so evident. You have such beautiful bearded irises, and this was such an honor to get to chat with both of you. So thank you for carving out this hour to chat with us on the Backyard Bouquet podcast. I know it's a busy month, and I hope I'll be able to make it down to see you guys this next month.
Yeah, we hope so too. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Well, yeah, thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you both. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, flower friends, for joining us on another episode of the Backyard Bouquet. I hope you've enjoyed the inspiring stories and valuable gardening insights we've shared today. Whether you're cultivating your own backyard blooms or supporting your local flower farmer, you're contributing to the local flower movement, and we're so happy to have you growing with us. If you'd like to stay connected and continue this blossoming journey with local flowers, don't forget to subscribe to the Backyard Bouquet podcast. I'd be so grateful if you would take a moment to leave us a review of this episode. And finally, please share this episode with your garden friends. Until next time, keep growing, keep blooming, and remember that every bouquet starts right here in the backyard.